So the subject is how the Bhagavad Gita serves to be the one book for everybody who follows Hinduism. So first of all, we must understand that Hinduism is not one religion. Hinduism was meant to, or implied to include all the religions that were south of the river Sindhu. And these religions that have taken birth on the Indian subcontinent generally form a broad base of religions that are ranging from theistical to atheistical. Those that believe in God and do not believe in God. There are those religions that believe in the Vedas and religions that do not believe in. So the religions that believe in the Vedas and believe in God both are known as Astika philosophies. Asti means there is, exists God, and the Vedas are his message. Unlike many other religions that depend upon a prophet, the Astika religions that depend upon the Vedas understand that the Veda is without an author, without a human author, that it is apurushaya. Apurushaya means without a human author. Just like when you buy something, an electronic item or gadget, you will get instructions on how you are supposed to operate and use that device. So also at the time of creation, God gives us his message on how to live within the world, which is described in the Vedas. These Vedas were never written down. Being apurushaya, they were simply transmitted by word of mouth from disciple to guru, from father to son. And these Vedas have 6 different ways of looking at it philosophically. Or there are 6 different philosophies that look at the Vedas. And these 6 philosophies that look at the Vedas acknowledge the existence of God, and they also acknowledge the faith in the Vedas as the word of God. There are also 5 Astika philosophies. And these 5 Astika philosophies, Nastika philosophies, these 5 Nastika philosophies are those philosophies which do not believe in God. Not only do they not believe in God, but they also do not believe in the Vedas. The Gnostic schools of philosophy are Buddhism, Jainism, Charvakism, Ajivikas, and Ajnanas. I don't need to explain Buddhism and Jainism. Buddhism does not believe in God and does not believe there is a soul. Jains believe there is a soul but do not believe in God. Charvaka doesn't believe in soul or God. It believes that Yavat Jivet, Sukhat Jivet, Rinam Kritva, Gritam Pibet, Basmi Bhutasya Dehasya, Punarajanama Kutabhavet. That who knows whether there's another life? So enjoy while you are living. Enjoy with your senses. Take pleasure of the sense. Ajivikas are also an atheistical philosophy. They also believe that there is no free will. Everything that happens by fate or absolute determinism. And they don't believe in law of karma either. It no longer exists with any followers today. And lastly, there is ajnana. Ajnana is that it's impossible to know about God. And since it is useless to try to know about God, it is useless to try to follow any philosophy. So these are the five Nastic philosophies. At the time when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, the primary philosophy that was Nastic, along with the others, was known as, because Buddha was not yet born, Mahavir was not yet born, but there was a common thread between them, that they did not believe in God and did not believe the Vedas. These religions were largely known as what is called as Shramana philosophy. And these Shramana philosophies were the ones that Krishna spoke of as a dharma. And in the Bhagavad Gita, I have already explained earlier in my earlier lectures that the Bhagavad Gita condemns those Shramana philosophies. In the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that Krishna says in the verse 5 and 6 in chapter 17, Krishna says, Ashastra vihitam ghoram tapyante ye tapo jana damba ahankara samyukta kama raga balanditaha karsyante sharirastam bhuta gramam acetasaha mama chaivantaha sharirastam tan vidya asura nishchayan. So some people perform extreme austerities that are not enjoined by the Vedas, but they are motivated by hypocrisy and egoism. Impelled by desire and attachment and their ego, they torment their bodies and act against the desire of the Supreme Soul. These senseless people are known to be demonic. We have many examples of people in the surviving Shramana philosophies. That is, we have seen in Jainism, for example, that they have extreme fasts and they are each beating their breast and showing their ego that I am able to fast more than you. They encourage their children to fast. They hire a hall where their child fasts in public. And there are cases which have been reported in the Times of India where children have actually died as a result of their parents encouraging their fasting. So, Krishna very clearly does not want these extreme fasts. In fact, Krishna says that one who eats too much or eats too little, who drinks too much or drinks too little, such people cannot gain anything by following the system of Vedas. But those who are moderate in their eating, sleeping, recreation, such people can attain relief of all suffering by following this system of yoga. And he also speaks further of these Nastic philosophies by saying, Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasvara na saucham napi chacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. This is in 16th chapter, 7th verse. And there he points out that those who are demonic don't know what is to be done and don't know what is not to be done. They have neither cleanliness nor proper behavior, nor is there any truth in them. Further, Krishna points out that asatyam apratishtam te jagadahur anishwaram. They say this world is an illusion, that there is no foundation to this world. There is no God. This whole world is produced by your sex desire, by your personal desire, and it has no cause other than lust. So these are all the philosophies that are Nastika philosophies. And Krishna rejects all these philosophies. Please try to understand that the Bhagavad Gita is not primarily about moksha. Bhagavad Gita is primarily about dharma. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Krishna points out that he has come to re-establish dharma. He doesn't say yada yada hi mokshasya. I have not come here to distribute moksha. He says, I have come here to teach dharma because it is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These are the four purusharths that are there in the Vedas. So, what are the Astika philosophies? Astic philosophies I have earlier spoken about in great detail in my lectures. And the Astika philosophies come from the Sanskrit word asti, which means knowing that which exists. It also means pious, and it's an orthodox school. And these Astika philosophies include Nyaya, Vaisheshika, uh, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, or Karma Mimamsa, Vedanta. All these are the six philosophies. And if you go back and you look at my earlier lectures, I have explained how each of these philosophies has been directed and it has been elaborated on within the Vedas, in the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita contains excerpts from all six of the Ashtika philosophies, and it contains refutations and condemnations of those which are Nastika philosophies. So Bhagavad Gita also is essentially about being anti-karma. It is a karma busting book. You see, in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the battle appears to be between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. But if you see the quandary that Arjun finds himself in, Arjun is overcome not with fear of the battle, but he is filled with fear of what the law of karma will do to him when he kills his elders, his uncles, his cousins, and so his teachers, and so on and so forth. So it is karma that terrifies him. Long before Mahavir and Buddha, many kings gave up their kingdoms out of fear of karma. And when they gave up their kingdoms because of fear of karma, they were no longer able to protect their populace from the invaders from the northwest. So you should understand that India has been invaded because of this foolishness of karma philosophy, which made kings give up their uh, duties and made them abandon their responsibilities of protecting the populace from invaders as well as from miscreants within their land. And Krishna comes on this earth in order to re-establish the principles of Dharma. And throughout the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that he constantly stresses the importance of doing your duty. I'm sure all of you will find this confusing because most of you must have heard Bhagavad Gita from people in orange robes who have renounced the world. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna repeatedly, again and again, emphasizes that that is not the preferred path. Sannyasas karma yogascha nihashreyasya karamutau tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. He says, There are people who use working in the world with devotion, and there are those who renounce the world. But between the two, working with devotion is superior. He also says, Sanyasastu mahabhavo dukkham aptum ayogata. Yoga yukta munir brahma na chirena adigacchati. Krishna says that those who renounce the world without having attained union with God, they get only sorrow. Dukkham aptum ayogata. But those who work in the world in a spirit of devotion and renunciation, they attain the supreme without delay. And this is illustrated in the Bhagavad Gita because Arjun tells Krishna that he doesn't want to suffer the consequences of the karma of the battle. And because he is afraid of the consequences of the karma of the battle, he said, let them kill me, I don't mind. I will just sit down like a mendicant, like a beggar, like a renunciate, and let them do what they want. This is his fear. His fear, and Krishna says, Kutastva kasmalam idam. Where did you get these impurities? What impurities? Impurities in the belief of this ridiculous law of karma, which terrified kings into giving up their kingdoms, which you saw in history. Both Buddha and Mahavira were people who abandoned their duties, whereas Bhagavad Gita is clearly about doing your duties in all and under all circumstances. And while this is why it's called a karma busting book, and in the Bhagavad Gita, you find instructions on how you can transcend the law of karma so that law of karma does not affect you at all. So, for those who believe in God and those who believe in the Vedas, both of which are known as Sanatana. Sanatana means eternal. They are eternal because God is eternal, and of course, the Vedas are eternal. So when God is eternal and He is perfect, from Him comes eternal and perfect things. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Shishyate. So God is perfect and God is complete, and everything that comes from God is also perfect and complete. So, in fact, the Bhagavad Gita is beautiful in the sense not only does it contain all these six Astika philosophies, as you can hear again from my earlier lectures, where I've discussed each one and Bhagavad Gita. But you can also understand that the Bhagavad Gita also includes great parts of the Upanishads. Upanishads are many. In actual fact, today there are 220 Upanishads. But out of these 220 Upanishads, there are Upanishads which are about Vedanta, there are Upanishads that are about Sankhya, there are Upanishads that are about various philosophies. Now, the Bhagavad Gita essentially contains excerpts from the Upanishads that contain both Sankhya and Vedanta. Because while many people keep on teaching Bhagavad Gita as being representative of Vedanta, you should really understand that the Bhagavad Gita is, while it includes Vedanta, and Vedanta is certainly plays a major role in the Bhagavad Gita, the primary philosophy or the strength of the Bhagavad Gita comes from the Sankhya philosophy. And the Sankhya philosophy is the predominant and important one that is there in the Bhagavad Gita. This you will not hear from anybody else, because most people will keep on parroting whatever they have heard from their teachers, who have heard from their teachers, and who have heard from their teachers. But anybody who studies the Bhagavad Gita with both a devotional aspect, with belief in the Lord, and also who studies the Bhagavad Gita with an understanding of its historical context in which everything took place, they will understand. It also requires you to study these philosophies. So if you do not study Sankhya Karika, you will never pick up Sankhya in the Bhagavad Gita. And majority of the people, or almost all the people who speak on Bhagavad Gita have never studied Sankhya. So you need to understand each of these philosophies of these six darshanas carefully and well. Otherwise, you will never understand how all these are brought together in a synthesis of philosophy. Also, many people foolishly believe that yoga is actually in the Bhagavad Gita from Patanjali. Patanjali is post Bhagavad Gita, very many years post Bhagavad Gita. The yoga which is there in the Bhagavad Gita is following what is yoga philosophy of Yajnavalkya. So you have Sankhya, which is theory, and yoga, which is the practice. But the main philosophy that Krishna teaches is the performance of your God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice to the all-pervading Lord. Yataha pravritir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana abhyarchaya siddhim vindati manava. And each person, by the performance of his God-given duties, in a spirit of sacrifice to the all-pervading Lord, will attain perfection. So the Bhagavad Gita essentially contains all the philosophies of its time. It contains all the philosophies that comment on or are philosophical perspectives on the Vedas. Therefore, it qualifies essentially as the book which contains all of theistic Hinduism contained within it. Please note theistic Hinduism that follows the Vedas. All of these are contained in one book, which is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is the synthesis of philosophies. Synthesis of philosophies which have belief in God and the Vedas, and it synthesizes all of them. At the same time, it rejects the philosophies of Shramana philosophy. That means these philosophies which have evolved into Buddhism and Jainism were rejected by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita specifically so that people come to the realization of what Dharma is and understand that this Nastic philosophies are adharma. And he comes also the predominant instrument that was used to convert people from Dharma to adharma was the law of karma, which is the real battle is not just between Kauravas and Pandavas, it is between the law of karma and the mind of Arjun. Therefore, Arjun, who is defeated by fears of the law of karma, just like many kings after him, including Buddha and Mahavir, you see Krishna coming and teaching him that you must do your duty. And if you do your duty, you are untouched by sin. Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karotya. Lipyate na sa papena padma patram yuvamvasi. That if you perform your God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice to God, then he says no sin can touch you. Just like a lotus leaf lying in water will never get wet. So you may be a soldier, you may be a policeman, you may be your occasion, your duties may demand what other people consider to be sin or bad karma. But if you are doing your actions as a sacrifice to God, then surely these actions will help you to transcend the law of karma. It's very important that Krishna speaks about dharma as the primary goal of his teaching, because dharma rakshati rakshitaha, that one who follows dharma is protected by dharma. You should understand that if you abandon the world will also abandon you. And if you live in the world and fulfill the duties and responsibilities that God has given you, and use your abilities to perform your swadharma, then actually these duties will help you to survive, to stay, to prosper. And as the last verse in the Bhagavad Gita says, you will get prosperity, you will get wealth, you will get fame, all within your prarabdha, you will get optimize all of that. So this is very important. So the reason why we have so many philosophies and so many gods is that the uh, India at that time, the subcontinent that we live in at that time, was something like the Silicon Valley in the United States. The Silicon Valley in the United States was none other than a place where hundreds and thousands of startups came, tech startups, right? And these tech startups became the source of so many companies that have become unicorns and have become very large. Now, just like today, Silicon Valley is the soil in which thousands of tech startups have taken birth. At the time that, you know, India prospered, there were this became a soil for thousands and thousands of religions, because this became a, shall I say, a Silicon Valley, or shall I say, a spiritual valley, where everyone could start their own religion. Everyone could start their own religion. You had followers, you started your religion. And then you went around and your followers accompanied you and you acquired more followers, and some of them survived, some of them did not survive. So this became a home for thousands of startup religions. So there are many startup religions, some of them have become unicorns today, and then there are religions that have not survived till today. This is how it is. But the truth is, largely because of distance, you will find that every 500 miles in India, you will find that the language changes, the dialect changes every 500 miles. And that's why we have so many different states with so many different languages. And not only that, but even the form of worship changes. And the deity that they worship also changes. But you will see that according to the Puranas, all the Puranas, whether it is the Devi Bhagavad Puran or whether it is the Shiv Puran or whatever it is, all of them conclude, each Purana concludes by saying that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and one should worship him. Now, many people come and show me this Puran, that Puran. I say, read the last line. And every time they read the last line, it says, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. So the Puranas are 18 in number. And out of these 18 Puranas that are there in number, 6 Puranas are meant for those who are in Tamagun. Tamagun, why? Because many of the original scriptures for the worships of these gods in the Tamasic Puranas, or Puranas meant for worship of formerly Tamasic gods, were, for example, you had the worship of Devi. A lot of it has been refined and has been sanitized till today. But in actual fact, the original form of Devi, the worship of Devi, consists of the 5 Mas. That means you have to have Masa, which is flesh. You have to have Matsya, which is fish. You have to have Madira, which is alcohol. You have to have Mura, which is parched rice. and you have to have maithuna, which is you have to have illicit sexual contact with someone who is not your spouse. It is not a swakiya ras, but it is a parakiya ras. And this is the way the original worship of Devi has been done. This has been sanitized by Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. This has also been sanitized by uh, the Ved Vyas, who has written all the Puranas. And all this matter has been expunged. But still, there are areas in uh, India where these practices still continue. Similarly, you have what we call as worship of Shiva. Worship of Shiva is also known to be tamasic. And I have met and debated with Shaivite scholars who have shown me their agamas and sutras which say that you cannot worship Shiva unless you have taken some intoxicant. Those of you who have had bhang when they celebrated Shivratri will know that this is an intoxicant. And this bhang intoxicant taken on Shivratri is because it is a tamasic form of worship. And therefore, the smoking of charas, the taking of bhang, these are all very typical tamasic traits which are there for the original worship of Shiva, which has been, again, I said, sanitized by Ved Vyas and also by Shankaracharya. Then you have 6 Puranas that are meant for those in Rajagun. And in the 6 Puranas that are meant for those in Rajagun, they are all about the various devatas who fulfill your desires, your material desires in this world. They are to be fulfilled by the worship of these various devatas who are there and worshipped in the middle 6 Puranas. And then lastly, you have the last 6 Puranas. And these last 6 Puranas are meant for the worship of Vishnu, the worship of Narayana, the worship of Krishna. These are the Puranas that are meant for those people who are in Sattvagun. So the first 6 Puranas are meant for those who are in Tamagun, to pull them out of it. The next 6 Puranas are meant for those who are in Rajagun, to pull them out of it. And the last 6 Puranas are meant for those who are in Sattvagun, to help them to transcend Sattva. And in fact, the Bhagavad Gita is meant for those who are qualified to study the last 6 Puranas. They are meant for, Bhagavad Gita is meant for people who are essentially sattvic in nature, whose sattvic nature is predominant among the other gunas. And the sattvic gunas which are there will prevent you from going astray. So, the Bhagavad Gita, this division of these Puranas and how they have been described is contained in the Matsya Puran. The Matsya Puran is one of the first Puranas. It is the first of all Puranas. It's called Matsya Puran. So you can look it up and you can see Matsya Puran. Or you can look up any of the other Puranas and you will see that Krishna is declared as God. So Bhagavad Gita contains Krishna, the Supreme Lord. He is the Supreme Lord as declared in all the Puranas. He is the Supreme Lord as contained in all the Vedas. He is the Supreme Lord as indicated by all the wise and all the wise and saintly people of his time. So Bhagavad Gita is the word of God. And if you follow the word of God, you will find peace, you will find perfection, you will find final destination. Therefore, Krishna says, abandon all other varieties of religion, of Dharma, and surrender unto me alone, and I will protect you from all sin, never fear. Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. So Krishna is very clear in stating that you must abandon all these foolish things, law of karma, this ridiculous philosophies of extreme fasting, and even this fasting has crept also into Vaishnavism. So you will find people fasting here also. But this is absolutely not recommended in the Bhagavad Gita. It's not meant for those who eat too much, nor it is meant for those who eat too little. But those who are moderate in their eating, sleeping, and recreation, they they can mitigate all suffering by following this system. So Bhagavad Gita is a very rich book, and it's a travesty to try to teach it as belonging to only Vedanta or only this or only that. No, it contains all philosophies and they've all been blended so beautifully, so wonderfully that you will truly be entranced when you really begin to understand what Bhagavad Gita is about. And just the study of Bhagavad Gita can enlighten you and pacify and silence your mind. And it has inspired many people in the past. But when you understand the Bhagavad Gita as it was originally spoken by Krishna, right? And many people represent Bhagavad Gita as saying that, it has Jnana Yoga for people who are intellectual, it is meant as Karma Yoga for people who work, it is meant as Dhyan Yoga for people who meditate, it is meant as Bhakti Yoga for people who are devotional. That's all rubbish. Bhagavad Gita contains all of these, but they are not discrete and separate. If you are intellectual, to the extent you are intellectual, use knowledge. To the extent you are meditative, meditate. To the extent that you are devotional, certainly be devotional. But since at least 8 hours of your day are spent in working, then I would say it is natural that work becomes your meditation. Work becomes the means by which you remember God and forget yourself. So we've almost reached. I'll leave some time for question answers and I will pause right here. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Shantanu ji, for such an enlightening section on Gita. It just opened our eyes about so many new things. And one very basic question which has come and which I think most of the people need an answer for is, what is a common person's true dharma? People like us, working people like us, what is the true dharma for common people?
The dharma for common people is to do what they are supposed to be doing. Yataha pravritir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana vyachaya siddhim vindati manava. You are not to change anything in your life. You just do whatever you're supposed to be doing as your duty, but in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to God. Make your work into a meditation and use your spare time in remembering God, chanting His name, being absorbed in Him, and studying the Bhagavad Gita, and you will find tremendous peace in your life.
You just spoke about a very enlightening fact for all of us, because we all consider fast to be an integral part of Hindu religion. And you just said that Lord Krishna wasn't in favor of fasts, extreme fasts, basically. So, what should a person's true approach towards fasting should be? Like, because in India we follow different kind of fast, from nirjala to eating fruits. So, is there a midway approach towards fasting that people should follow?
See, Krishna very clearly says that it is not meant for people who eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little, but those who are moderate in their eating, sleeping, and recreation. They can mitigate all their suffering by following the system of yoga. So, fasting has something that has crept into our philosophy through Jainism. And because of that, we have also started following many of these practices. But you must understand that fasting is not necessary for spiritual life. The important thing about spiritual life is to remember God and forget yourself. Fasting often increases heat within your body. You become what is called tapodipita. You become inflamed with anger. Many times, the person who is fasting is very irritable, very angry. And people who talk to the person who is fasting are often told, "Don't talk to me now. I'm very irritable. I'm fasting today." Because that is not the purpose of fasting. Fasting is not meant for you to, exaggerate your irritability and your anger. In fact, you will find those religions. There are religions which recommend that you fast for 1 month at a time, right? And they are some of the most violent religions because it breeds anger, it breeds all kinds of negative things within you.
Thank you so much, Shantanu ji, for such.
Also, what happens is that
Yeah.
those who are fasting, they often put on the maximum weight. They put on the maximum weight because the body's physiology changes when you fast. And when you change, you find that after a month of fasting every day, you find that you have actually put on weight rather than lost weight. And that's because your body metabolism has changed to adapt to this fasting. And therefore, the fat deposition is increased. So I would certainly say that I don't recommend fasting personally. And Bhagavad Gita
Also,
either.
yeah. That was also a very scientific aspect, that it has actually been seen that people gain weight, if they fast for prolonged periods. Thank you so much, Shantanuji. It was a very enlightening session. And people who are watching us live right now, please stay tuned and keep watching this space. We'll be back next Thursday for more information, more enlightening sessions on Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much.
Hari Om, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna.